make a move in the ring. You can hit me with a word you fling.
Hey guys, it's a very special episode of the Post-Fight Podcast. I'm Nick Atkin. I'm here in the studio and we've got Hong Kong's own Ramona Pascual with me. How are you doing, Ramona?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
I mean, now we've been trying to do this since I think November after you had your last fight, a 26-second knockout in WLF, and yeah, just everything's been getting in the way, hasn't it? First of all, you weren't here, then I wasn't here, then that pesky coronavirus happened.
Yeah.
Yes, but now we finally got down to it because we wanted to pick your brains for a long time because you are training in the UFC Shanghai Performance Institute, and you know, I don't want to give everything away, but were you also slated to be on Dana White's Contender Series Asia?
That's the eventual goal.
Yeah.
So, you know, because I'd come back from that injury and that was my first fight back, and so it was all about building momentum in 2020 to then lead me into the opportunity, hopefully if things go well. But that kind of is on the back burner now. So I think what's going to end up happening is I'm going to, well, if and when I head back, get a couple more fights in, see how I do, and then you know, that the Contender Series could potentially be an option for me.
Because you were out injured for 2 years before that 26-second knockout, and we talked a lot about how much you've learned studying, you know, with the UFC coaches. Just how much has it upped your game training with those like world-class facilities?
Yeah, it massively. There's a part of me that feels like I started training MMA in June of last year because the way that they approach it is unlike anything I've ever seen. And usually you have these gyms, even these big teams, where they'll split up the classes into like, okay, we're gonna wrestle this session, we're gonna do jiu-jitsu this session, we're gonna strike this session, and then there will be maybe 2 times a week where they get together and do MMA. No one does enough wall wrestling, no one does enough wrestling for MMA specifically. So going in for the shot, going in for the takedown, setting it up with shots, or you know, trying to get an advantageous position in wrestling while punching and defending from that with the risk of getting punched, you know, because if you're just training wrestling in its purest form, it's so different. Your stance is different, the way that you attack is different, the way you defend is different. And I think you'll find more often than not gyms focus just on specific disciplines separately, and there isn't enough integration. And so the MMA program designed by Dean Amasinger, super complete, you know, very MMA focused. So we don't train much jiu-jitsu, we don't train much wrestling as its own discipline. We always tie it back to MMA. And I think that, coupled with, you know, the facilities that we have, the S&C, the nutrition, the physio, the fact that they're all communicating together rather than me going out and needing to hire a nutritionist separate to my coach, separate to my S&C, separate to, you know, physio that don't communicate, and so they don't really know where I'm at, how hard to push me, when to dial it back. And also just being around, you know, some of the best fighters in China and having them push me, kind of just all of that together has made a very big impact.
It must be super frustrating though, having this rebirth. Like you said, I feel like I only started MMA in June. Now you've been stranded here since what, January is it?
Yeah, it's January.
Yeah. What are you doing first of all to kind of keep up with training? Where are you training? And do you have any idea when you're going to go back?
Yeah, it's hard. I packed a bag in January to come back here for 3 weeks, and then
I remember we were trying to set this up, and now I'm off to Shanghai again.
Yeah, and then just never went back, which is a shame. Yeah, it's very sad, you know, to kind of know that I'm in this program, you know, I'm exactly where I need to be, and you know, I was just all in on this really, with a lot of plans for 2020, you know. I think a lot of people had big plans for this year, but I think if you compare it to all my previous years, this has definitely been the biggest opportunity that I've had, and considering how much progress I've made in the last 6 months, I just knew that within the next year, I'd be looking at a potential opportunity to fight in Dana White Contender Series, which is something that I probably would not have been even close to had I not been accepted into the program. So yeah, that's just been a really big bummer, and kind of coming off a 2-year hiatus because of the injury, and then not being able to find opportunities, and finally having this one where they're just slotting us into fights and trying to build our records, trying to give us as much experience as possible, and doing it in the right way with all the resources we have available to us. It's been difficult, and so being here, I think focusing on the things that really matter to me as well, like being close to my family, and being able to pretty much heal my body. I'm not undergoing as much stress as I normally do. But it's been difficult. I can't really expect to be in the same form that I am in Shanghai because of what's available here. So it's really just covering the baseline. I do my jiu-jitsu, I do my striking, I do my strength conditioning, and the volume isn't the same, and I feel like the volume in Shanghai is what really gets us adapting to that physical stimulus. And so instead of 4 hours a day, I'm going down to 2 hours a day of training. Not to say that I can't hit high intensities here. I do. There are a lot of sessions where I'll redline, we'll have sparring and jiu-jitsu. But as far as it relates to MMA and how focused it is with MMA, it's not really. So that's been the challenge, and so just mentally having to accept really that this is where I am and this is how things are going to be, and I don't know what's going to happen next, but really all I can do is handle every day as it comes and make sure that I do my best, really.
Yeah, I think I was all set to go to Shanghai as well to film some stuff with everyone on the show. Did you get many details about when it was going to be? Was it slated for April, the filming? I'm
the Contender Series?
My brain, yeah.
It was meant to be June, I believe. Or sorry, no, you're right, April. It was meant to be April, and then it got pushed back, and then that's kind of. Did
they tell you anything else, or was it just you're going to be on the show, but we've got to keep things?
Well, so we're kind of split up into groups. So like there is one group of people who are closest to the UFC. So like the highest performers, and so they would be just people that have been very active, that have built momentum, that have a very extensive record. And then you have kind of another group that's like mid-range, and then you have one that's more developmental. So obviously the ones that are the most ready are the ones that they're going to put into the Contender Series. I think there's a different way that they do. I think they have like X number of people from the first group going in, X number of people for the second group and the third group.
It seems the theme of Dana White's Contender Series, Asia is going to be China against the rest of Asia. Have I got that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So giving our athletes a chance to go out there and because most of them fight only in China, and so giving them an opportunity to fight Asians outside of China, because I think more of the foreigners that come in are mostly Russian, actually, when they come in to fight in China, or European. And so the whole point is to see, who reigns supreme, essentially.
But is it going to have fighters from Australia, New Zealand as well, or is it just those other areas?
I'm unsure about New Zealand and Australia, but definitely Japan, Korea, I would assume Southeast Asia as well.
Yeah, so do you feel it's a big gap in the UFC's market, maybe, that they can go into these Asian countries the way that I think One Championship has done? They've taken a lot of Thai talent and Philippines talent, not just Korea and Japan. Mm-hmm. Is that something the UFC could really break through with the Contender Series here?
Yeah, it's possible. I think it's possible. They definitely have a shot to be, it's kind of looking all the Asian countries and trying to find the top fighters, top unsigned fighters, and get them to come and compete, put on a good show. I the UFC is planning on opening these performance institutes in other parts of the world as well, and so it's just starting with China, and so eventually other countries are going to get to, you know, be highlighted.
It's been tough for you, obviously, you know, having your dream so close and then it's taken away again. I mean, how long would you be prepared to wait in Hong Kong? Say if this creeps into 2021, would you want to go train somewhere else, maybe like Tiger Muay Thai in Phuket or somewhere else? But I presume you'd have to quarantine, wouldn't you, either side of that for a couple of weeks?
Yeah. I mean, if the situation is I'd have to quarantine here for 14 days and over there for 14 days, meaning that for every 6 weeks of training I have to be in quarantine for 4, then I wouldn't do it. I would stay here. But if not, then I would definitely want to go out there, get some training in if Shanghai is not available. So I think it's really just come down to trying to make the most of being here, you know, getting my jiu-jitsu in, getting my Muay Thai in, doing my S&C, knowing that I'm not going to be able to develop as much as I would if I were to be in Shanghai, you know, or Phuket for that matter, purely because of the number of high-level training partners they have available over there, and, you know, the high-level coaches that are very MMA specific. I'm still able to focus on separate disciplines like jiu-jitsu, you know, haven't been in a gi in a very long time, or brush up on striking, all the fundamentals again. So that's been nice, you know, to do that, and just maintain a baseline level of fitness and skill development, and because that's all you can do, really. And if I think too much about the things that I'm missing out on or that I perceive that I'm missing out on, it's really, I'm not missing out on anything because there's nothing going on, you know. There's no possible
Must be frustrating
way.
though, right? You having overcome that injury and you're having your big moment, big comeback, and you're getting better than you've ever been, and then it's easy to think, why me, right? But I think a lot of people are having problems, aren't they?
Yeah,
all over the world.
you know, it's easy to feel sorry for yourself. That's how we're programmed to automatically do that. And so the challenge is really to think outside of yourself and kind of look at this whole situation, bigger picture, because, you know, it's very easy for me to sit at home and think about all the things that I could be doing right now. You know, I was supposed to fight in March, I was supposed to fight again in June, and then, you know, again at the end of the year, and thinking about how that hasn't happened, and then that causes me anxiety. It's like, it's not happening. You know, that circumstance doesn't exist. In, you know, what exists is what's happening right now, the situation right now. And so the more I resist that, the more I feel uncomfortable in my body, in my own skin, the more I'm just not in a good mental place. And it doesn't help to not be in a good mental place during this period. And so just having to put forth that extra effort to focus on the things that are within my control, you know, focus on all the good things about me being at home. You know, I have not spent this much time with my family ever since I can remember, you know, and that's been really nice, to be close to family and friends. And so, you know, there are a lot of good things. I'm giving my body time to heal, and I'm still getting stuck into martial arts. It's just different. It's no longer MMA, it's more jiu-jitsu, it's more Muay Thai, and things that disciplines that I fell in love with in the beginning before I even thought about getting into MMA. So that's been good, and just taking each day as they come. You know, news it's all different. Like with today and yesterday's news about the new cases. Yeah. You know, there's certain days where I feel like, oh, we're close. You know, maybe almost. You know, we're almost going to get to that point where I'm going to be able to go back to Shanghai, and then all of a sudden this comes up, and you're just like, oh, no, I'm further away. But yeah, just taking each day as it comes. You know, MMA is such a unpredictable sport in itself, and so I feel like my career and training and doing this full time has kind of prepared me almost for this. You know, and having the mindset to just go with it. You know, whatever comes, all the unpredictability, and do what I can.
And there have been a bunch of cases, as you said, this week in Hong Kong. Are you worried maybe the gyms may close down again because they were shut for 6 weeks, I think, over April,
Yeah.
May? Is that a worry or concern?
I didn't even think of that.
I don't want to give you more, to think about.
Yeah. I mean, if they shut, they shut. You know, like we went through that whole thing a couple months ago, and we were just fine. That just means more outdoor workouts. You know, like I said.
More beer on the sofa for me.
Yeah, and, there you go. There you go. So like I said, there's really what can you do? Like there's nothing you can do about a certain situation, and then you sit there moping about it, and it causes you more anxiety, and you get into this headspace of like depression and being down on yourself and down on the world and losing hope and this and that, and then projecting that negativity onto people around you. I've been there, you know, in different situations previously in my life, and it has not helped me one bit. It's actually, if anything, just kind of pushed me down, further down. Then, you know, it's like, even though I'm not making so much progress in the way that I want to be making, I can still make progress, you know, even if I don't have a gym available to me. I can still go for a run, you know, I can still meet with people and do outdoor workouts. There's always something to do, as long as I can keep my my mind in check, you know, and in perspective. Everything else will just fall into place, really. And if I look at this period as like, oh, it's a loss, like that would be a failure on my part, where I could have made gains in all sorts of other areas. And really, you know, this is adversity that we're going through, and adversity only leads to more strength eventually. And so that's kind of what this is. This whole period is really conditioning, and I feel like it's definitely conditioning everyone to just be a little bit stronger.
Has the institute opened up already, and are some of your friends training there at the moment, or are the restrictions there too?
So some of my teammates have already been fighting since April. I think I have one teammate that's fought 3 times already since the pandemic. It's crazy.
Is that also in WLF?
Yeah, that's WLF.
Because UFC has a deal with them, is that correct, in China?
So So we put our fighters into that show, but also they're like one of the biggest shows in China anyway. So all the top fighters fight for them that are not signed to bigger promotions.
It's not just MMA. You were telling me they have.
Yeah, they're like
right?
they're a broadcasting company that have an MMA arm, and so they already have the studio, they already have the production, all that stuff. So all they really need to do is just organize to get the fighters at their location in Zhengzhou, which is about 2 hours west of Shanghai, and then they show up, and so they don't really have like funding issues. They don't have resource issues, because they have all those. So it's really easy for them to bang out shows every single month.
Kind of like the Apex for UFC in Vegas.
Yeah, what they do is they'll film like 30 fights in one day from like 12 p.m. to like 12 a.m. or something like that. And then they'll release every Wednesday like 5 fights in one evening on their television show, along with like all, other stuff that they're doing. So they do that very well. So my teammates are fighting in that. The PI is opening beginning August 3rd, I believe, is the date. It kept getting pushed back, but I think it's pretty set now. So it's going to open August 3rd. So all the local Chinese athletes are going to be able to go back, use the facilities, train with the local coaches that are there. Because all the foreign coaches are also obviously stranded still and not able to go back. So they're kind of just going to make do with what they can.
So your teammates have been fighting, but they've not been able to train in the Performance Institute?
They've been training at their own gyms from before. Because, China's got some very strong MMA teams to begin with already in different cities. And so, they kind of all gather. So you'll actually find a lot of the guys at the PI in the academy program already have trained together in the past or are already teammates, and so they're kind of those groups, little pockets of different teams there. So they've been doing that, and then now they're gonna have access to those resources that they had before, just not the training with the proper coaching, not proper coaching, but with the head coaches.
Have your teammates, some of them going to be on the Dana White's Contender Series Asia as well?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yes, they will. I don't know when that's going to be, though.
I'm trying to remember all the details. I got sent an email, and then Forgot. Do you know like how many fighters have been signed up already?
So I believe, I could be wrong, I believe it's 5 fights per event.
Yeah.
And they had wanted to do, I can't remember, it was like 5 events this year. That was the
All
plan.
in Shanghai.
hmm All the
Okay.
PI, and it was meant to be spaced out like month to month.
Was Dana going to go there? Dana White?
I am not sure. I think it was possible. He might have been planning on going to like a couple, but
'Cause
not
he came for the opening, didn't he?
but not all of them.
the
Yeah, he was
Institute.
there for the opening.
Did you get to meet him?
I did not,
Ugh.
because he was downstairs and we were told to be upstairs. And I realized like some of our teammates had gone down to take a picture with him. We were like, what?
You may know our reporter Matt Scott, right? We sent him out there. He tried to get Dana White for an interview. Dana just blew him off completely. No, he promised him, "I'll give you an interview if you're in Vegas." And true to his word, he did. Matt went over to the Willy Joanna fight, and he got Dana one-on-one. So
It's fantastic.
fair play to Dana. He kept
Yeah,
his
there
word.
you go.
Yeah. But have you met anyone else from UFC? I guess Kevin is the figurehead there, right?
Kevin, the
Chang,
big
right?
boss.
Yeah. Anyone else who you've come across there, or
You mean staff or
or
fighters?
just anything? Any big names come and giving classes? And
Yeah, well, a lot of the Chinese fighters come through. They train with the team. So Song Kanan and Leech. Zhang Weili's come for press events, but she hasn't trained with us. We had an American fighter, Justine Kish, come train and do her fight camp with us. So that was cool to see her, get to train with her. Jessica Andrade did 2 weeks of her camp there prior to her last fight, but she brought her whole team, so they were just using facilities. I don't know. I'm sure there are other ones. I mean, we already have one guy signed from the program, signed to the UFC, and so it's really nice to, he was the first last year. I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of people that have come through too, but.
did you met Zhang Weili, right? Did she come to your last fight? Is that correct?
She was there because there were like, I don't know, 40, 60 people fighting on that card.
Yeah.
So it was like more like 40 people. And so, yeah, she was there, I think, supporting some other people, just watching the event. So she came and, she had already known a lot of the fighters who were fighting on that card.
Because
So
we have a
that.
picture of you with her, I think.
After my fight,
backstage,
yeah.
How cool was that?
Yeah, it was very, very cool. It was very cool. Definitely, kind of just. And then she was like, "Oh yeah, that was a sweet KO." And I was like, "Oh my God, she saw it live."
Did you? I presume you watched that awesome fight in March in Vegas. Yeah. What did you make of that?
It was
5-round war, wasn't it? Probably like one of the best fights I've ever seen.
Yeah, phenomenal. I mean, can't. That's a fight that gets you on your feet. Like gets your emotions going. I think it's really nice to, that fight kind of made people who perhaps were doubtful of women's MMA or perhaps weren't MMA fans to kind of, become MMA fans, and kind of respect the female fighters and respect the level. Because they're two very high-level strikers, going in there, putting everything on the line. And it's always nice to see a fight that's close, which... this is something that I just recently have been listening to a lot of podcasts and interviews about. When you have a fight of the night, you have two people who, are quite even, and that kind of creates the intensity and creates the entertainment. Whereas if you had somebody just completely smashing one person, like that might not be as appealing to somebody to kind of, there's no back and forth. But if you have somebody who's just completely outclassing someone else, like that person's obviously the superior fighter. Whereas you have two people who are coming in and they're quite even. And I think I was watching that Rose Namajunas interview with Ariel Helwani where she was like, yeah, my problem with that fight was everyone's talking about fight of the year. Like there was no, like where was the defense? And I was like, I get what you mean. So like if you're talking about like a show of heart, for sure there was a massive show of heart. And I think that's what people connect to the most. The the whole idea of fighting, like getting over adversity, getting beat up, but then like giving it your best shot regardless. That's always appealing to everyone.
She must be a huge inspiration for you, not just as a woman, but an Asian woman, to see young Willy on that stage doing what she did, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've seen her train, and she has this intensity about her that is insane. Like I would love to train with her, one day, hopefully in the future, but she eats, lives, breathes MMA, and she's really, really, like, she's not distracted by anything, and she is purely focused, all in on this career, and day in and day out has a whole team built around her. She gets everything that she needs. And yeah, she's just, she's been doing this for a very long time. She's just completely committed, completely dedicated, and that's really inspiring to see that.
Has been watching the UFC for you during this lockdown and all this stuff, has that been a helpful thing, keeping your mind sharp? And you told me you like to read and listen to a lot of interviews about it. Does that help you just keep focused on still improving the mental side of your game?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely given me something to look forward to, for sure. And yeah, I'm a big fan of the sport. I became a fan when I started competing in it, actually. If you ask me about earlier UFCs, so I'm not a true fan, so haven't really seen any of those. So anything 2016 onwards, I've been pretty regular about following, and I like, not just as a fan, but like you said, I watch a lot of the interviews, I watch a lot of the embedded episodes, anything and everything leading up to it, because I also want to get a feel for who this fighter is as a person, where their headspace is at, because it's also, fighting's about reading people, like you want to see if you can read your opponent better than they can read you, and that's how you can expose where their holes are, because more often than not, their holes are going to be in the mental aspect of things. And so if you can capitalize on a mental weakness, you can generally capitalize them or dominate them physically, I feel. And so if you have somebody who seems a bit less confident than they normally are, for whatever reason, due to circumstance, and you see that their head is not quite in it, in these specific interviews or certain things that they say, you can see who's mentally strong and who isn't.
I just wanted to ask you finally, how is it, the Hong Kong scene, how do you think that's developing, and the Hong Kong MMA scene? You're obviously a pioneer for Hong Kong, going into the UFC, Shanghai Performance Institute. Is that something that must be like a real, like, no one else has done that, right?
Yeah.
So do you feel, how much pride from that?
Yeah, I feel, it's been great to see how far I've come. Having started here, I started Muay Thai here, I started Jiu-Jitsu here, so the whole journey started in Hong Kong. I left, to college for a short period of time, so was training there for a little bit, but not really seriously. So I didn't actually start my fight career until I moved back here. And Hong Kong's got very strong jiu-jitsu, it's got very strong Muay Thai. It's not quite there yet with MMA, it's just very difficult. We don't have any wrestling out here, at least not at a high level. And even MMA, it's difficult to find legit MMA in other parts of the world as well. As most places, they might be really strong at one discipline or the other, or even say you're strong in Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, that doesn't mean that you're good at MMA. And I think just since being at the PI, it's opened my eyes to what MMA training actually is. And it doesn't mean you're training Jiu-Jitsu 3 times a week, or even, or just Muay Thai 3 times a week. Like, you really have to be training MMA every single day, and then possibly doing a technical session where you're focusing on certain techniques specific to, jiu-jitsu or specific to striking, but all has to tie back to MMA and the transitions with the feints, with, level changes, with striking to, setting up a takedown. So, Hong Hong Kong still has ways. I mean, I won my first 2 fights and then I lost my next 2 fights, and that prompted me to realize, Hong Kong isn't going to get me to where I want to be, and I'm not in this sport just to make it to the regional level and then die off. Like, I'm in it to reach the global stage, and I knew that if I stayed here where it was comfortable, I wouldn't get to where I wanted to be, or it might take me more time than I have, having started this career late. So for me, it was imperative to find the best teams and the best coaches I could have access to, and that was, traveling to Korea at the time for this one opportunity with Road FC, and then going to Phuket, spending some time there, and then having this opportunity in Shanghai. And I think the willingness to leave the comfort of home in search of better opportunities and in search of people that have more experience has been really, I think I owe it to that with where I am right now.
It's like Sasha Platnikov,
Yeah,
our friend.
exactly.
He's gone to Vegas, hasn't
Exactly, yeah.
he? Have you spoken to him lately?
I have not spoken to him lately. I know he's recovering from that injury, but he seems to be recovering very well.
Middleweight champ with Angels fighting championship in Korea, but looks like he's trying to do what you've done and maybe get out of Hong Kong and expand the horizons a bit.
Yeah.
Would you recommend that to other Hong Kong fighters?
I know it's difficult, obviously. Like, you always have to think about how it's going to work financially and all that. And at the time, I wouldn't have done it, honestly, if I hadn't gotten that sponsorship opportunity from Road Championship. But that was only for a short period of time. And as soon as I did that, and I realized the value of leaving Hong Kong and how much I developed from it, that's when I was like, okay, I'm just going to do whatever it takes, find sponsors, borrow money, like whatever it was that I needed to do. Because I only have so many years left in my career, and I want to do it right. Because you can spend 10 years training MMA wrong and never get anywhere and have this record that's all over the place, versus spend 3 years doing it right, going to, finding the best coaches, the best teams, challenging yourself, and make it, pretty far. So I think it's not so much about the time you spend doing it, it's really about the quality and the efficiency and where you put your time. So I would say, while there isn't a strong infrastructure for MMA in Hong Kong yet, if you are looking to reach the highest level, then I would say yes. Thailand is a really good place to go because it's very close. It's not very expensive at all. Like, you would not be paying, the rent that you pay there is a fraction of what you'd be paying here,
Yeah.
So, do what's necessary. Like, when I started training MMA, I had my own flat out here, and then eventually when I decided I was just gonna go abroad, I just moved all my shit back home, And it's like, you just kind of have to, find things that work.
Well, we'll have to get Sasha on the show as well to catch up with, find out what he's doing. But anyway, Ramona, really appreciate you coming on. And where can people find you on social media if they want to check you out?
Yeah, well, basically just Instagram, really, at Ramona Carla. That's where I am, where I post all my updates, stories, and all that.
Yeah, it's been good to see your insights actually on Instagram. It's a bit, we don't get to see much of the PI in Shanghai.
Yeah.
But because you've posted some really revealing stuff. It's cool. I've been following it. It's hard to find all the information. So.
Yeah, I'm the only English speaker in the program too, and I'm the only one that uses Instagram regularly, obviously, because everyone else is on the China social media. So I kind of feel like, well, I'm the only one that's able to do this. It's like, why not?
Do you speak Mandarin as well?
I do speak Mandarin.
Are you like constantly translating for people or anything?
Well, the assistant coaches do all the translating, and they do it a lot better than I would be able to. But if they weren't around, I kind of jump in. So I'm the only one that can kind of understand what the coaches are saying, and also what the translation is. So that's kind of cool. It's also forced me to practice my Mandarin. It's been nice. It's been nice to have to practice that just to communicate with my teammates and get to know them.
Well, yeah. Hopefully everything gets back to normal soon, to normal enough that you can actually get back to Shanghai. and start training. But yeah, thanks again for coming in. Really appreciate it, and good luck with everything in the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Sasha Platnikoff here, letting you know to tune in to SCMP Post-Fight for all your weekly martial arts news.